You might remember from the lesson on prepositions that two-letter prepositions tend to be joined to the word with a little hyphen called a makef, and one-letter prepositions tend to be joined directly onto the next word. So here we have el ha'ir, el ha'ir. This is a hirkyod. It means to the city, el ha'ir. Here's your definite article, el ha'ir, to the city. Here we have l'kohen, l'kohen, and this means to a priest or for a priest. This preposition can mean to or for. So this week I'd like to teach you a new preposition that is a little bit special because it has a weak letter in it. If you recall, I said that hey is a weak letter, and that's why sometimes you'll get something like this, la kohen, which is for the priest, because the article, hey patak doubling dot, once you, so we had the word the priest, kohen. When we add something onto there, the hey, because it's a weak letter, drops out, leaving you with this. The way you know it's for the priest is because of the vowel and the doubling dot. And you might notice that when, even if this was a guttural letter, you might notice that that has compensatorily lengthened. But the point I'm trying to make is that hey is a weak letter, and sometimes it will drop out of a word when it's pushed between two others. There's another weak letter, and that is nun. So in our new preposition, which is min, this word, mem, hirik, final nun, min. Min means from. It's very important. It's also the word they use for comparing things. So in that situation, it probably is smoother in English to say than rather than from, right? Like you said, he is richer from that man. It sounds awkward in English, but if you say he is richer than that man. But you can see that there's a little bit of overlap with the concept of from, like how far from. He's better than that man. It means how far from him are they in richness or in whatever you're comparing. So you can see why they might use the word for from for comparison in that way. But they use from, they use min in the same way we use from in spatial things, right? The man from that land, etc. Well, let's say you wanted to say that that man is from the city. So here we'd still get the makef joining it, but instead of to the city, we'll say, here is a gift. Oh, oops, almost wrote a lamed there. Here is a gift, min ha'ir, from the city. It would be joined by a makef, a hyphen. So that's used in the same way. Typically, when min is in front of a word with an article, it'll be in that form. However, unfortunately, some words, when there's no vowel at the beginning, and it puts that nun right up against the consonant, nun is a weak letter. So when you get, say, min melech, from a king, what happens is the nun drops out. So if you wanted to say min melech, what would happen is the nun, min melech, when you push those together, the nun drops out and doubles the next consonant. This happens in English with the word in, which means not legal. Illegal, when you put those together, that is an illegal action. The N drops out because is a weak letter when it's up against another consonant. It drops out and it doubles the next consonant. So we get our word illegal from the same concept that Hebrew gets this nun dropping out. So what you would see here is mumelek, final kaf. And you get this. You'd get me, leg, memelek. So you've actually got 3 mems here, because you've got this mem plus a doubled mem and then lamed kaf. So that's from a king. Now, here is a helpful concept when you're talking about what's called an assimilated nun. This dot, pretend like, I'll draw this mem really huge, okay? Now this letter here got doubled by the nun assimilating into it, just like our illegal, the L got doubled. So the doubling dot in this letter, if you could zoom in with a microscope, it would be a little tiny nun. That's actually not true, but that's helpful, a helpful way to remember, oh, sometimes a nun will drop out. And that will happen, it happens most commonly in this word min. But that will happen all over the place in Hebrew. You'll be reading along and you'll see a word and you say, I thought there was an N sound in that word. I thought there was a nun. I thought it was spelled that way. And then you'll see, oh, the next letter's doubled, so that doubling dot there is probably an assimilated nun. That's where the nun went. Okay, and you can keep reading. So this is a rule to help you, give you another preposition, and to help you see a very common preposition, but it's also a general rule in Hebrew. Nun is a weak letter and it drops out and it goes into the next letter. So where did our nun go into Melech? It went there and it doubled this next letter. So if you wanted to say your sentence such as, here is some gold from a king. Well, you have, the word for gold is zahav. Let me get my hay looking there. Zahav, now remember our memory device for remembering zahav is do zahav the gold, right? Zahav means gold. So zahav memelech, gold from a king. Now typically if it were gold from the king, they would actually keep the separate like that. That's the general rule, not always. But anyway, the rule is if it's right up against, if you get min and that nun is slapped right up against another consonant, the min is going to drop out and you're going to see that. But here's the thing, you don't need to worry about any of that if you see min something that's from that, and if you see m slapped on the beginning of a word, with a doubling dot in the next letter, you say, okay, either one of those could be the same word, from. So that's an important word. If you wanted to say, something like he was richer than a king, this private citizen was richer than a king, it'd be the same situation. He was more rich than a king. So that's a very common word, from. You'll see it all over the place in the Bible, and sometimes you'll see it this way, and sometimes you'll see it connected right to the next word, just like some of our 3 one-letter prepositions. One final thing to say, I know it's frustrating to hear that there are weak letters like hey and nun, and they drop out, and things change, but the more we get into the text and we're seeing it and we're seeing context and we're seeing vocab words we know, the easier all this becomes. And if you're a little confused by a detail why a word changed, don't worry about it. Just keep reading. That's why it is very important to be learning your vocab words. So the vocab words at the end of your notes, I suggest you try to memorize those. Start with just a few. Memorize a few of them and come up with a little memory device like do zahav the gold. You can do it for all of them. For example, ish means man, right? Ish. Each and every man. Right? Each and every man. So just come up with something. Spend a while on each word, thinking of a way to remember it. Right? Eretz means land or earth. Carrots grow in the eretz. These are silly ways, but you've got to do it, or it'll be too hard. And also, coming up with funny ones makes it more fun to learn your vocab.